Hello, everybody. This is Logan Pettingill, and I'm doing a podcast on the Puritan religion. So before I start talking about that, I'm just gonna go over a couple things and reasons why I'm doing this. So before I talk about that, I'm gonna say my first things I'm gonna do is I'm going to talk about their history, where they came from, talk about their values, their beliefs on their religion, and beliefs on marriage. So that's all I'm gonna do. And before I talk about that, I'm gonna just say I have always been very interested in religion and stuff like that. Me not being really religious myself, not being a diehard religious person, I just have always found different branches of religion very interesting, and that's why I've decided to talk about the Puritans, and I've always just found them very interesting, their way of life. So, uh, let's get started. So, the Puritans uh, were a society of extremely strict Christians. So it was a branch of Christianity. Was the religion. So they were very orthodox and they had a very disciplined rule set and belief system. And they lived their lives according to the Holy Bible. So they were they were like most Christians. They believed in God. They believed in Jesus Christ, and they believed that uh, they believed in heaven and hell. But they took it a little farther than that. They believed that they believed in a lot more strictness. They were a lot more strict than any other, and they really weren't super similar. They're they were they are a branch of Christianity, but they did not believe all of the same stuff that a Christian or like a Catholic or a Mormon or any other uh, branch of Christianity. So they also believed in, unlike other branches of Christianity, they believed in leading a very simple and plain lifestyle, and they believed that their destiny was to uh, basically make peace and get forgiveness from God from all the sin in the world. Uh, and they believed that the only way of really reaching true salvation was to follow everything in the Bible, to read the Bible, and yeah, they they uh, they now well they came from they actually came from England initially. They were originally from England, and we're gonna kind of dive into their historic background, where they came from, and all that stuff. So their history is that the real existence of them, they were really found out about in the 1600s and the 1700s, kind of those two centuries. That's really when they were mainly known to be around. And what they wanted to do was they wanted to purify the church in England, because they believed that the church is supposed to be a place of holy worshipness, but instead has become a corrupt, unholy place. This is why the Puritans were. That's why they were called Puritans, as they wanted to reform the church by purifying it completely. So they ended up moving to America from England, and they settled in Massachusetts in about 1630 to build a city upon a hill, so that people could look up at them and start following their footsteps. and they uh, they were very disciplined when it came to living their lives as the Bible instructed. They believed that the sole purpose of life was to glorify the Lord and to obey the Scripture that they were given. So usually when people think of a Puritan, they think of someone very strict, living a very mundane life, and that's really what they were. They were Christians that basically lived through the Bible. Their whole life was religion in the Bible. They really were so focused on possibly going to heaven because of their belief system. So it is also widely believed that they restricted themselves and deprived themselves of sex. And uh, that's kind of true and kind of not at the same time. It wasn't like they didn't have sex, they did, but they didn't do it all the time, and they only did it after marriage. They didn't really believe in just having sex. They believed in marriage. They believed that you needed to be married to be able to have sex with someone. So the Puritans also believed that Jesus Christ died of the original sin of Adam and Eve, and they being and them being descendants of them should honor and sacrifice by living a life which is governed by his commandments and instructions. And so basically what that means is they wanted to seek forgiveness from the Lord because of what Adam and Eve did. And so they believed in Jesus Christ, and they were basically like any other Christian, except they were a lot more strict and lived a very mundane lifestyle. They didn't believe in technology. They didn't believe in any modern technology that was around at the time. They were very just strict on their rule sets. So they didn't get along with other religions. They didn't believe Catholics and other branches of Christianity were very good. So, for an example, the Puritans believed that the church is owned only by God. So, therefore, there should not be any bishops or popes in the church. They also thought that the presence of a higher authority would result in corruption of the Holy Church, which was not right in their minds. This is the reason why they had immigrated from England to America, because they didn't believe that their church was holy, and they wanted to go and basically make a new life for themselves. So now, here are their beliefs on marriage. They were very strict, following the rules of marriage and loyalty. So they really had a very strong belief that you must be loyal, and you must not commit adultery. You cannot cheat on your spouse. And if you were caught cheating, then you were going to be punished. So, when it came to the purpose of marriage, they mainly saw it was mainly for companionship. The reason they had marriage was mainly for companionship. And same thing with having sex. They only really saw that as companionship. So they saw sex as a way to strengthen the unity and the bond between a husband and a wife. And there's also a lot of different things about the marriage. So the woman could actually physically tell the person in charge that their husband was not satisfying them sexually, and they basically would punish the husband if the woman felt that he was not satisfying her sexually. So they were very strict against adultery, which is very, very understandable. But the thing that was not super understandable, they believed that if you committed adultery, then you would have to die. They would kill you. It was punishable by death in their eyes. And they really were very high on loyalty. So, like I said, you cheat, you die. So so therefore they believed in the holy union of marriage, which was nothing but the will of God, and it was their prime duty to obey his uh, basically to obey his wishes, is what they would say. So when it came to really now I'm going to actually really talk about their sexual relations in marriage. The Puritans believed that it was a foundation of loyalty and purity, and just a it was really only for the purity and the loyalty in a married relationship. So a Puritan really only thought of sex as like I said, a way to bond and to a way of loyalty and purity in uh, a marriage between the husband and the wife. So the beliefs on their superstition, I'm going to talk about that as well. I didn't really get to say that. I would use that, but that's another thing I would like to talk about. The discussion of the Puritans' faith and belief on marriage would be incomplete without the discussion of divorce. So, as I mentioned earlier, the Puritans hold matrimony extremely, I don't know, they just held it very strongly. So they were very, like I said, they were very high in loyalty, and they didn't like the idea of divorce. So their approach to divorce is only under the following conditions: death, desertion, and adultery. So if you divorced someone, you would die. So you would really only be leaving someone if you basically deserted them, you cheated on them, or you died. So that was really the only way you could get out of marriage. Those were the three ways you could get out of marriage, and you'd probably die anyways. So their family beliefs were, like all other aspects, they were extremely strict with this aspect. The man was supposed to be the head of the family, and the wife was the wife's one responsibility was for taking care of the house, was to take care of the house, the children, and if the kids were not well managed, and were not given proper godly knowledge or scripture growth, the parents, especially the wife, was blamed for it. The Puritan's wife knew that her duty was a responsibility, and was first forwarded to God. So she knew that basically it was her main responsibility to keep track of her children, to make sure that our children have the knowledge of the Holy Bible, that they were knowledgeable enough to be able to read. They were smart enough and educated enough to be able to read the Bible and to understand the Scripture. So that was the wife's main duty in that. So uh, that's about it for me. Uh, that's all I have on the Puritans. That's what I have on their belief system. And as you can tell with them, they were a very strict body of people. You could definitely tell that they definitely believed super highly on their religious beliefs, and it was all their lives really centered around. They didn't really they they're very different compared to other religions and even other branches of Christianity. And there are God knows how many branches of Christianity there are. There's so many. But they are one of the most unique ones in my opinion, just because of how strict and how tough they were on almost everybody if you've kind of strayed from the line. So I always like to look at it like a line going straight. That was their life, was just a straight line, and it was crazy because if you took a slight curve in that line, then you were punished, and it was seen as a sin or just very bad. All right, that's all for me. Thanks for listening. Uh, that's all.